That's you live.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is brought to you by fans for fans, and where the content is absolutely free. It is episode 208 of the Gersnet Podcast. I'm your host tonight. I'm Colin Armstrong. We're previewing the Livingston game at Ibrox tomorrow. As I say every week, guys, it's not just the pod that we have here at Gersnet. If you get yourself onto the website, you'll find the forums. There's articles. Frankie's got one up this week. There's a history archive on the website as well, so get yourself onto that. And as I always say to you every week as well, put the word out there, let people know we're here, subscribe to the YouTube channel, all that kind of stuff. That'd be grand. Before I get started, I will need to find my notes. There they are. I will need to mention our partners at Forest Precision Engineering, who are a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company and have been a big commercial supporter of the club for a number of years. We're delighted that they're back in the pod, and you can get more information on their website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. They also have a suite in the main stand at Ibrox. It's a stunning new suite, so get yourself booked in for that. If that interests you, you can email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. So now to bring in my guest for tonight, it's Craig Ray. Are you there, Craig?
I'm here, Colin.
Yeah. You weren't showing up on my screen there. I was panicking. I thought I was talking to myself at 1 minute.
I know, we're all guilty of talking to ourselves sometimes, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's one of the things. But no, I'm good, Colin. It's Friday. Rangers are back tomorrow, so can't complain.
Is that a good thing in current circumstances?
I was going to say that. You're probably going to have people in the comments going, what? It's a good thing that Rangers are playing? But no, I think it's always a good thing when Rangers are playing, regardless of how we're all feeling. So it's another game, it's another day, and let's look forward to it tonight. Yeah,
I should give a wee mention of my backdrop, by the way, the pennant from the Rangers Leeds games. 30 years ago tonight, 30 years ago at this very moment, I was sitting in the Broomland Road rear watching Rangers beat Leeds United, 2-1, and it remained my favourite game at Ibrox until the Leipzig game just a few months ago there. The Leeds game was I'm assuming you're too young to remember it, Craig. You probably weren't even born then, but the noise, just the noise when the two teams came out, especially, was just off the scale. And I can't believe it's 30 years. I can't believe I'm that old. But there we go. So I just thought it was worth a mention. Just before we came on air, I think it was Old Rangers Pictures account highlighted it was the 30th anniversary. I was like, oh God, there you go. So yeah, big shout out to Rangers v Leeds 30 years ago tonight. Before we get started on tomorrow's game, Craig, I thought it was worthwhile talking about Steven Gerrard, who obviously got his jotters last night from Aston Villa in quite a brutal way, it would appear. I think it was like the minute the game finished, and on the bus home coming back from London, he knew he'd been sacked. All the players knew he'd been sacked. So it seems a bit brutal. And I've seen a few Rangers supporters online sort of taking a bit of pleasure out of his predicament, and a lot are not. I'm not saying it's all the Rangers supporters. No, I mean I was quite angry at the way Steven Gerrard left us. It annoyed me. It was almost like a midnight flip when international break. He buggers off, and all of a sudden you're like, what happened there? But time's a great healer. It was kind of the same for me when Souness went. Souness, like literally about a month before he left, was in the Rangers news saying, I'll never leave Rangers. I'm in contract discussions with David Murray. I'm never going to leave this club. I'm here for life. A month later, he's down the road and signing for Liverpool. And a lot of Rangers supporters were angry at that at the time. But I think time's a great healer, and the older I've got, I get over these things a bit quicker. And after a few months, I kind of came round to thinking, well, actually, I'm very glad that Steven Gerrard was at the club. I'm glad that, one, he got the title, the title that at various stages in that journey, I questioned, might never see it again, if I'm being honest. We seemed so far off it at one point, when we were going through that journey to Forfar and, Annan Athletic and all those sort of clubs. He got that title, he stopped to 10. The European thing, I think, is worth a mention because he has given me, I'm 50 next year. I've been going to Ibrox 30, 40 years now, consistently for the last sort of 25, 30. That's the best sort of run of European form, the most consistent run of European form I can remember. That 4 years, and it kind of set us up for that final in Seville. So I think seeing some of the supporters enjoying being in this sort of predicament, I'm not sure I agree. I'm thankful to Steven Gerrard. I think he done a really good job at Rangers. I think he picked the club up. It was in the gutter. I think he picked us up, made us a proper footballing club again. And I'm very thankful for the fact that he was at the club.
Yeah, I can't really disagree on anything much I've said there, Colin. I think the perfect phrase you used there was "time's a great healer." I think, like everyone, I don't think there was one Rangers fan in the world that wasn't angry when he left and sort of the way that he did leave. But as you say, time is a great healer, and he brought us so many good memories. As you say, brought us back up from the gutter. And Celtic fans of last year have been talking about the rebuild that Ange did. I mean, my God, if they think that's a rebuild,
yeah, I know.
What kind of rebuild did Steven Gerrard get?
I think they even called it project rebuild. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
What one season without the title, and it's
aye. I know.
Anyway, there you go.
I mean, two seasons in a row in third place, miles behind Celtic, absolutely miles behind Celtic, and he got his, in my opinion anyway, probably the most important title in our club's history. Eventually, did take him a couple of attempts, and the cups weren't great, and I think he could have won more, but at the end of the day, we all crave that 55th league title, and it's down on the website as well. And I know we mentioned to that my favourite Rangers memory is Helicopter Sunday, but probably in terms of a whole sort of experience, probably that title win was probably the best weekend of my life, if I can remember much of it. But it was an incredible moment, and it wasn't even the 3 years of Steven Gerrard in the making. It was 10 years in the making, and I think it was quite fitting that the day we lifted the trophy was the 15th of May 2021, bang on 10 years, 15th of May 2011, when we done it at Rugby Park against Killie. So, I mean, in fairness, if you're talking about his time at Aston Villa, I think the writing was on the wall for him for a wee while.
He struggled a wee bit.
You know what it's like in the Premier League. I mean, the Aston Villa job's like a poison chalice. They're probably going to have more managers there than there's been prime ministers in the last few years. But
last couple of weeks.
Last couple of weeks. I know. But it's one of the things. It's football, and a lot of people have said, "Oh, I think his career's going to stall that." I mean, it's Steven Gerrard. The guy will probably pick up at the very least a top level Championship team in England, possibly a sort of lower Premier League club, just because his name alone and also the job that he done at Rangers. So he might get the Liverpool job one day, but it's not going to be.
Not going to be anytime soon. I actually think this could be it for him. I think he might go back to punditry. I just wonder if he said a plan in his head. Yeah, he would. Yeah, I just think the end game in this, and I think we all knew that. We all when there was no cloak and dagger nature about his motives. I think we all knew he wanted the Liverpool job. He said he was on record many times saying that Rangers were very similar to Liverpool, big club expectation, all that kind of thing. So it gave him that sort of experience of managing a club. But the expectation is, I think the move to Villa was to sort of give him experience in managing in the Premier League and all that kind of thing. And I think if he'd done a good job there, then he's put his hat in the frame for whenever Jurgen Klopp goes. But I think that's gone now. I don't think he's going to be the next Liverpool manager. Whoever that is, they're going to be there for maybe 3, 4, 5 years. I just don't think he's going to keep pushing it. I think he had a plan in mind, and I think it's come unstuck. And I just wonder, just based on stuff he said in podcasts and stuff like that, that he wasn't going to be in this management game too long because he wanted, to spend time with the family and all that kind of thing. So I think that might be it, but I might be wrong. That's just my guess. Time will tell. But whatever he does, I wish him well because, he gave us our pride back, and I'm very thankful for his time at the club. On to tomorrow, Craig. Rangers against Livingston. Match day 11 for us in the SPFL Premier League. 3 o'clock kickoff at Ibrox tomorrow. No train strike tomorrow, but there is one next week against Aberdeen. I found that out today because I had to leave the game, the Dundee United game early last week there, a couple of weeks back, because there was a train strike. So be mindful of that. Nothing tomorrow, so all good tomorrow. I was having a wee look at the odds. Rangers 1-7, draw 6-1. Livingston are 14-1. But I suppose the big talking point about tomorrow Craig, and it's already happened. There's a game going on tonight. Is the introduction of VAR, so we've got VAR in Scottish football. It's already intervened tonight. Martin Boyle was booked for simulation. I know. Imagine if it was Morelos. I think we'd have been hearing a lot about that. But it went to VAR, and it was confirmed that he is a diving, cheating prick, and the booking remained. So it's already been used. We'll have it tomorrow. So there are 4 sort of situations that can be used. Straight red cards, not yellow cards or a second yellow card. It won't be used in those situations, just straight red cards. Penalty decisions, goals, and mistaken identity. Right, so, I suppose we'll find out. I've been quite consistent in my opinion on this. I'm not a fan of VAR. I just think it's an extra layer of bureaucracy. I don't think it enhances the experience for supporters who are at the game. You're sitting there at home, fine. You hear straight away, yeah, they're doing a check or they're not doing a check, blah, blah, blah. At the game, you don't have a clue. It seems to take an age for it to come up on the screen, and then you've got to wait on the actual final decision. And I just don't know. I'm not a fan, and I think we're so immature up here when it comes to the football. I just think it's going to add an extra layer of controversy. Can you imagine, the permanently offended mob across the road there? The minute this VAR goes against them, that it'll be another Masonic conspiracy, all that kind of thing. So I'm not that keen on it. How do you feel? You think it's time that it was introduced, or are you with me and think?
No, absolutely, it's time to get introduced, Colin. I mean, it's been a long time coming. Do you know what? It does have its flaws, and for me, I think the biggest flaw is probably, and this is what's going to be the initial sort of bad thing about it, is probably the time that it takes for decisions to be made. The second bad thing about it is that Scotland and the referees that we're going to have are going to remain the same.
Well, that's one of the points. It's the same. It's the same people that are getting the decisions wrong that are calling the shots.
The thing is, though, I think if anything, if they've got this sort of this extra man there to help them get the decisions right, surely that would then show properly, beyond a shadow of a doubt, how incompetent the referees are. And to me, if that does happen, then that's a good thing, because surely you can only learn from that. And that, either that means retraining referees, getting them in full time, getting new ones through, maybe even get them from abroad. So I think now that the referees in Scotland, I wouldn't say they've gotten away with making bad decisions before. They probably have, to be honest, for a while. But what it's like up here. But I do think now, because there's that layer of sort of transparency during a game that we've never ever had. I think a lot of referees are, if they don't make the right decisions, they're going to find themselves under a lot of pressure from Scottish football fans. And I do, I'm not a conspiracy theorist like some people, but I genuinely just believe the quality of referees in this country is crap, to be honest. It's honking. It's probably the worst in Europe, I would imagine. The referees aren't full time. Although, in fairness, somebody made this argument about, can we make the refs full time? Would that make it better? I mean, possibly, but then I'm kind of thinking, well, if you can't tell what's a penalty and no a penalty, what's a foul and no a foul, if you're training 20 hours a week or 40 hours a week, do you think running about a pitch for an extra 20 hours a week is going to make that decision better or quicker? I don't think it will, to be honest. But
surely if you take the sort of application of professional against amateur and anything else, professional's always better than
I know that, but I think because in terms of referees, the mistakes they make are so sort of it's human error. Do you know what I mean? It's like, how can you train someone to know the rules or something? I think of it as well. That you work part-time in a job and you're not full-time, but when you're working part-time, you're still expected to show up for the 20-hour-a-week contract that you're doing and work, to the best of your ability at a professional level for 20 hours a week, whether you're part-time or full-time. So, but whilst they might be classed as part-time, they still are professionals. The money that they're making, the money that's been invested in referees the last few years, that, if you're a part-time referee, you're earning more than the average wage in this country anyway. Without having their second jobs as lawyers or teachers or coppers or whatever it is they do. So I don't really think that should have an impact on how good or bad they are at decisions. As I said, but with VAR, I think it brings in a level of transparency that we haven't had before. So I think that's only good.
Do you not think there's a danger, though, like you were talking about there, it would put referees under more scrutiny? Is there a possibility? And I think this is the case because I think referees. I mean, I think they get into it for the best intentions and stuff like that. But I do think it's a bit of a boys' club. You know what I mean? I do think there's that element to it. You know, it's so if you're sitting there with the screen and all the rest of it, with the images there that are going to damn your mate to hell in terms of how inadequate a referee he is, are you really going to flag that up, or are you just going to let that go?
Well, if I was his mate, and then I think the first thing that I would want to do is for him to get his job right. And I genuinely think as well, would you not be more embarrassed if it's getting flagged on sports on the Sunday rather than during the game, when you've got that option there of actually rectifying it during the game? Because I think that would be more embarrassing for my pal. Although maybe they want to embarrass her, who knows? I don't know. Who knows? You know what these refs are like. They're strange people, so who knows what they're like.
Well, they're a Protestant boys' club, aren't they, apparently? So that maybe explains a lot, you know.
That's neither here nor there.
I don't think they are, but there we go. Right, on to Livingston. A really strange start I was looking at today. 10 games, no draws. They've won 5 and they've lost 5, so they're very black and white. They obviously gave us a tricky game in the opening game of the season at the Tony Macaroni Stadium. The boy Joe Newbley, he caused us a lot of problems that day. You know, it took a couple of late goals from Arfield and Taft to sort of save the day. I was sitting today trying to think of a really good game against Livingston. The only one that came to mind, it was about 20 odd years ago. We were either 4-0 up or 4-1 up.
Was that
and
the 4-3 one?
It went 4-3, yeah, and it became really nervy. And that game stands out. But other than that, I genuinely am struggling to think of a good game against Livingston. I think the games at their ground are always horrible. Can't really remember a standout game at Ibrox. But that, I mean, you know, they're not coming to entertain us. They're here to get points and stuff like that. And Martindale will certainly set up to do that. So, given the kind of awkward nature that Livingston can be at times, you know, they are a bit of an awkward club and a sort of sticky team to get past at times. And given that performance, which this is the only mention Wednesday night's performance will get in the show, right? Given the standard of that performance on Wednesday, it feels like tomorrow, if we put in that sort of level of performance, it could be a tricky game.
Oh, yeah, I mean, look, Livy's always a tricky game. It's weird, but we love it all because we've all got this sort of, oh yeah, it's a tricky game, this, that, and the next thing. You know, I've done my research earlier, and a record against Livy since they've came back up in 2018 is really good.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
They beat us once. I think the game where, what was his name? Can't remember. Dolly Menga scored at their ground. They beat us 1-0 under Gerrard, and then the 55 season, I think the third game or fourth game of the season, we drew 0-0 over there as well. Barisic, I think, hit the bar of the post near the end. Apart from that, I think we've won every single game against them in the League of the Cup. The thing is, have any of those wins been convincing? Absolutely not.
No.
So it's going to be a tough game. You know how Livy are going to set up. I mean, it's no secret to anyone. You know, I thought that big striker, the one that scored against us, I mean, he really gave us problems, you know, Suter especially. Obviously, we know the unfortunate situation he was playing under at that time. But, you know, Newbley was made to look like, you know, Drogba under Mourinho. I mean, he was, you know, he looked sensational, and he really did give us problems. And then obviously we had the Cholak goal ruled out, which incidentally, if VAR was there,
this is one thing I've got to say. Like when I was reading what it was going to, you know, influence on, it just says goals. It doesn't say anything about offside or not offside. So I was like, well, is the offside rule included in the goals? But the four issues that or the 4 parts that VAR is going to play a part in, offside isn't mentioned.
It will be. It's just that the way that they describe it is very sort of pedantic.
So you ain't get it's the goals. So the goals. So if there's a goal scored, they'll check for offside.
Yeah, basically with VAR, I mean, this happens in any other league. Any goal that's scored with VAR gets checked. The referee doesn't check it, but the VAR officials will always look. You know, if there's a foul in the build-up, should a corner have been given? If it's a goal from a corner, is the player offside? Blah 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 blah. A couple of good examples in the Europa run last year. Roof's goal against Brøndby. he scored that the ref flags offside. That's 1 goals, but that's an offside one that got overturned and the goal got given. Same with Morelos against Scotland. Though the difference with that one is Morelos was about 20 yards onside, but the flag gets raised. He's offside, but then it goes to VAR because they've said, look, he's onside, or he might be on. Maybe not say he's onside, but they say he might be onside, and then they're like, well, yeah, he probably is onside. Come and have a look. So that would have stood with VAR. But in terms of Livy, it's always a tough game, But I'm a wee bit more sort of up for it tomorrow after the press conferences today, especially with Cholak earlier, kind of basically saying that he's wanting to, the players will want to put on a bit of a performance and a show for the fans, which is probably the first time someone's actually said that this season.
Yeah.
So hopefully that results in not only just a win, but a good performance as well. Although in saying that, with everything's that's going on, and I know we'll speak about it later, I will gladly take a scrappy 1-0 win, at least until the winter break, with everything that's went on with us. But I know we'll get into that later.
Yeah, in terms of the squad update, Gio was given a sort of update today. Obviously, the injury list remains fairly lengthy, and we've added Ridvan to that. Apparently, he picked up a wee knock on Wednesday, so he'll be out tomorrow. Nothing too long, according to Gio, just a couple of weeks or whatever. But some positive news about Connor Goldson today. He sort of suggested that it appears that the injury is not as bad as first feared, and we could see him in January, which, given the break that's coming up for the World Cup, doesn't actually seem that far away in terms of games, So that's a positive. Also, talk of Kamara coming back in for the Napoli game. I mean, I would view that as a positive. I know, given his form, some others won't at the moment. So yeah, we are kind of down to the bare bones, but when you look at the personnel that's still available, you would imagine that we've got enough in the tank to put out a team that will get a result tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's why we've got such a big squad. We need to go out and at the very least get the 3 points tomorrow. There's no excuses. I know we've, as you say, the squad is down to the bare bones, but the quality that we'll put on the park compared to Livingston, especially at Ibrox with 50,000 fans, there's no excuse for not getting the job done. Yilmaz is a real disappointment because I think, I would have liked to see him play anyway, just because, it's good to give him a wee run of games, but I think tactically as well, it would have been interesting to see how he played against Livingston, because he's sort of more of a ball type player, like on the ground, if that kind of makes sense, whereas Barisic would be whipping balls in. And I think, if you're doing that against Livingston constantly, the movement from Cholak's going to have to be really, really, really good to get away from it, which it is, in fairness. His movement's excellent, but I think that Livingston would love to play against, if Livingston are defending crosses all day tomorrow, they'll love that. Whereas I think Yilmaz would have maybe been able to change it up a wee bit. So, if he is out tomorrow, I think that is a wee bit of a blow in terms of showing what we might have been able to do against them. But no, I mean, we need to go and win tomorrow. Regardless of how the squad is, there's no excuses for not getting a win tomorrow. End of.
Especially, the Celtic games at lunchtime tomorrow. If they get the 3 points, that makes 3 points imperative. It's not even up for debate. In terms of Connor Goldson, say there, some positive news. Out till January, but I think for a while there it was feared it was going to be a lot worse. Yeah. So it feels like the timescale on that has come down a wee bit. But probably a good opportunity to talk about Liam King. We look at it as a negative, and it is a negative. Connor Goldson is such an important player, and I think we found that out against Liverpool. Once he went off, the organisation seemed to just disappear for that back four. So, yeah, we're going to miss Connor Goldson. I get that, but trying to look at the positives, it's giving this boy a chance, and he is rated, and given the sort of performance levels he's given since he came in, the boy's got to grab his opportunity, and I would say he has done so far. I think he looks the part.
Yeah, I love Liam King. I think he's great, especially for his age. It's hard to believe as well that he's 18.
18, I know.
I mean, Jesus Christ, man. I read something earlier today that apparently a couple of years ago, I think when he was 15 or 16, he knocked back a move and a lot of big money to the EPL. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. But to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me. This guy has clearly been in the minds of, people at Rangers for a very, very long time. Gerald gave him his debut. Gio last year, as soon as it hit the 1st of January, said, new contract and you're in my first team squad for the rest of the season. Because obviously in the month or so before the new year that Gio was in, he looked at me and he went, right, you're good enough to come in straight away. And this year he's had plenty of opportunities, and I do think he's grabbed them. One thing that I really, really like about him is, his leadership abilities from where I was in Wednesday. Sorry, another mention of the game on Wednesday, but like any time the ball went out to Sands, like if he was to pass the ball across to Sands, who was obviously his partner on Wednesday, he was always pointing, he was always shouting, go there, go there, go there, go there. Something that Goldson does, and King's it's probably helped him a lot playing alongside Goldson a few times and stuff like that. But it was really good to see that in a game like that, he's telling Sands, who, I know Sands isn't old, he's only a couple of years older than him, but Sands is, the professional, he's an international footballer.
An international player, yeah.
And King's just not giving a toss. He's just, do you know what I mean? So, that for me supersedes everything about his ability as well, which is obviously second to none. So, yeah, I think he'll come in, definitely. I mean, he'll play for the last few games up until the winter break anyway. The guy's played in every single Champions League game this year, which for an 18-year-old is incredible. And I mean, I know we've been absolutely gubbed in each of them, but, it'll teach him a lot of good going forward. And you can only take positives from that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of reminds me of the Danny Wilson situation. Danny Wilson came in, he was about the same age, and he got Champions League experience in it, and that benefited him. And I think Danny Wilson's biggest mistake was going to Liverpool. I just think he went too young, and that's had the impact in his career. I honestly, I used to look at Danny Wilson again, probably well before your time. I thought it reminded me of Alan Hansen a lot. How composed he was on the ball and stuff like that. And I thought, well, this boy's going places. And I just think he made that big move just a wee bit too soon. But hey, hopefully Leon King doesn't do the same thing. On to Kemar Roof, I thought it'd be worthwhile having a wee chat about him, Craig, because obviously he's been out for so long. Actually forgot he existed at one point. You forget he's there because he's been out for so long. I've heard wee snippets in the background from here and there that the reason he was out for so long this time was, they wanted to get this problem fixed. So I don't know if that meant surgery or whatever, but they gave him the rest that he needed, and they'd done everything that they needed to do to try and fix this situation once and for all. And apparently, when he returned to training, he was training pain-free for the first time in a number of years. Now, again, how true that is, I don't know, but that's just some of the stuff that I was being told. He came back on Wednesday night there, and again, I think he saw his 40. The type of player that, if he was fully fit and didn't have the injury record that he had, there's probably an argument to say that he wouldn't be at Ibrox. He would probably be playing at a higher level in terms of the league. But it's, when you consider the form of Cholak, Morelos has obviously come in and chipping in with goals. Another option up front. It would just be nice to get all our players fit at the same time. When we had a back four fit and we're picking the same back four, we had problems up front. All that's coming back together now. Morelos is back. His discipline issues are behind him. Roof's coming back, and obviously things are going to pot at the back there with Goldson and all the rest of it. But I do think Roof does offer us something different. He's such a hard worker, such an intelligent player, good in the air, good finisher. If Cholak's not doing it, if Morelos is not doing it, here's another option.
Absolutely. I think Roof's a great player. I don't understand the people that
don't get him.
Aye, I just don't understand it. Look, I know the guy cost a lot of money, and I know he's on big wages, but at the end of the day, I think he paid it all back probably that 55 season, to be honest. But even last year as well, when he was available, pretty much every goal that he scored last season was a big goal, was a winner. I think in the away game at Hibs at Easter Road, he scored a couple of equalisers against St Mirren away and St Johnstone away when we were a goal down. Scored the winner against Aberdeen at home in March. Scored the winner against Braga. It took us into the semi-final. That probably actually got us a transfer fee back alone when it comes to prize money. I think he's a quality player. He really is, and as you say, he does offer something different. His movement, his touch, it's second to none. And what I think is going to be really, really interesting is perhaps, and Gio kind of touched on it earlier, we've seen in the 55 season that Roof kind of played as a sort of right forward, if you like. So I don't know if that might be something that Gio might be wanting to try, maybe Roof and then show that through the middle, or Roof and Morelos like it was that season. I know Gio wants to play with, two proper wingers, but perhaps if we move to a sort of three at the back, your two wing backs and Tav and whoever it is on the left, and then two sort of strikers, or maybe not two strikers, but a proper striker, and then someone playing off the proper striker, kind of like Kent's been doing in a lot of the European games. So there's definitely a place for Roof in this team. I don't think it's as simple as saying, oh, well, he's now the third choice striker. I mean, to be honest, after his performance in Wednesday night, in the 17 minutes that he came on, he done more than what Morelos done in the 73 minutes and than what he was on the pitch. So if anything, Roof should be the second choice striker now, if you're looking at it that way. But the guy's a quality player, and I really, really hope that his injury troubles are behind him. It was quite. I found it funny at the time. Before the game, a stretcher was coming trackside towards the sort of dugout, and I said to my pal, I went, Christ, you don't think that's Roof injured again, do you? Before the game's even started. But no, he came on, he done really well. I think he's a quality player, and people are saying, oh, we might only get 5 or 6 games out of him. But see, to be honest, if we do get 5 or 6 games out of him, he scores 5 or 6 important goals. It's like, we're going to need those important goals. Do you know what I mean? If you look at towards the end of last season as well, he started that week that we played Celtic and Braga, the extra time week, as I like to call it. How important was he in the 2 games? I think it was his.
And I don't think he was fully fit at that point either.
Exactly.
I think he was struggling.
And then even when he came on in the Europa League final for those 3 minutes,
he really set up the chance for Kent that Kent should have scored. Yeah,
exactly. This is what the guy can do when he's not even fully fit. So hopefully all that is behind him now. But even if it isn't, and he still has a couple of wee niggles, if we can still get 25, 30 games a season out of him, I still think he's worth keeping, because if you play him 25, 30 times, he'll probably score between 12 and 15 goals. So you need that.
I also think it's good that, you've got a striker in Cholak at the moment that's bang on form, scoring pretty much every week, scoring more than one every week. The level of competition, he knows if I don't score this week, well, Morelos might get in, or that's Roof again, he might get in. So that, to me, that's what makes a good team. Everyone, more than one player fighting for that position, and we have that at the moment up front. Roof can play out wide, obviously, but I think primarily he's a striker.
Yeah.
To have 3 top quality strikers fighting for that number 9 jersey, I think it puts us in a good place. I wanted to talk about Gio and the criticism he's been receiving, and I've seen a lot of it on Twitter, stuff on WhatsApp. Is he getting sacked this week? Is he getting sacked next week? All that kind of thing. And I've got to be honest with you, I'm frustrated as well. The level of performances are not great. Can't deny that. That on Wednesday night was turgid. It was just a horrible game of football. But he's winning. Take the Champions League out the equation. Our domestic form is really, really good. You think of what was one of the main objectives this season, to get into the Champions League. He's done that, and I think he had a fairly difficult run. We're in the semi-final of it's not the Premier Cup now, it's getting changed again, isn't it? But
probably the Satanta Cup by the time they'll bring that back.
Premier Sports have been bought over, and I can't mind who it's by, and it's going to be renamed again.
Viaplay, I think it is.
Yeah, Viaplay. Yeah, that's him. So we're in the semi-final of that. We're really only a bad refereeing decision at Easter Road away from being level with Celtic on points. So, when you put it like that, I don't think there's, take the Champions League out of it, there's really no evidence in terms of results to say that Gio deserves to be sacked at the moment. The criticism he's getting is purely down to the level of performance. So are we being a bit overcritical? If he's getting points, I know it's a hard watch, and it is a hard watch at times, but if he's getting the points, Are we being overly critical?
I mean, when did Rangers fans ever care about performances? Do you not remember the time when it was like, oh, we don't care about performance as long as we win, that's all that matters. It seems to be in the last sort of, well, this season basically that seems to have just completely flipped. I do think the criticism has been so over the top. I mean, look, you're obviously allowed to criticise someone, and I've criticised it as well. Look, you can't beat around the bush. The football that we are playing now is horrendous, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no really any other words to describe it. It's boring. It's it's just really, really bad to watch. But we're getting the results, and I think you need to remember as well what this guy's had to put up with since coming in, more so in terms of the injuries. Now, look, I know a lot of people say, oh, well, we shouldn't have signed the likes of Suter because I look at his problem, Roof, blah, 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 Helander, I think, was already injured, already had injuries when Gio came in. Roof already had problems when Gio came in. Suter, regardless what way you look at it, he was a free signing, so it's kind of risk free. You're not going to lose out a lot if Suter doesn't work out. The three main injuries that we've had have been Hagi, Morelos, and now Goldson, who have, Hagi's going to be out for over a year by the time he gets back. Morelos out for 6 months. Goldson probably about 3. These guys have never been injured before, certainly not to that extent. Now, that is very, very, very unlucky to lose guys of that quality, more so Morelos and Goldson coming up. And I think Hagi as well. I think a lot of people maybe underestimated how important Hagi was to us. That the 55 season, I know I've said that a few times tonight about that season, but he got the most assists in the league that year, I think more than Tav. Everyone's been saying we've needed a proper link between the midfield and the attack for ages. For me, he was the man to do that, and obviously things have happened. I kind of touched on it earlier with the whole winter break coming up. The issues that we've been dealt with, it's like, if we win 1-0 up until the winter break, I'm happy. I think the time to judge Gio on style and performance, I think will come when we hopefully get a fully fit squad back in sort of January, February time. Personally, I think right now he needs to be given the season, like 100%, unless there is an unmitigated disaster where we lose, our next however many games and we're completely out of the title race. If that happens, fair enough, right? But for me right now, he needs to be given the season. And I think in terms of, I will be honest and say that going forward after like next season, I'm kind of going towards, I don't really think he's a man to take us forward long term. But I think certainly in the short term, absolutely. I think for me, I'm going to judge him on whether I think he should be the long-term manager at the start of next year when he's got another transfer window, when we've got a fully fit squad and we can see how we play between sort of January and May and obviously how the results go. But I think some of the criticism's so over the top, do you know what I mean? Like, you're allowed to, everyone's allowed to criticise, do you know what I mean? It's, we live in a free society, but I think to call for jobs, and the thing that really confuses me about people is, ones that will say, well, Wilson, they basically just want everyone to go, everyone out. They just put a name in front of out, and it's like, okay, right, well, if you sack Gio, Ross Wilson's still going to be there. So, the problems that you're saying we've had under Ross Wilson will still persist under a new manager. Then even if you get rid of Ross Wilson, but you don't get rid of Gio, the problems that we've had under Gio are still going to persist even if Ross Wilson isn't there. And then that's before you come into the whole finances of sacking the manager midway. I think Gio signed a 4-year deal or something. I don't know exactly, but you're having to buy him out of a contract with a couple of years remaining. Then, I mean, is there any decent managers out of work right now? Not that I know of. So you're probably going to have to pay another compensation.
No, I think one's just left Aston Villa, but we'll not get into that.
No comment.
No comment. Yeah,
you never know if we could pay QPR enough and he could come back as Bill's assistant. But I just think some of the criticism's so over the top. Like, give the guy. I think we just need to give the guy a break. I mean, and another thing as well, when people talk about like his press conferences, I mean, I've been in a few of them, right? I mean, who cares about how the guy speaks? Like, I just want guys to get results on the pitch for Rangers. Do you know what I mean? Like, and people are saying, oh, well, I prefer Gerrard's press conferences to Gio's press conferences. And you're like, mean, for goodness sake, it's a really bad day when you're actually comparing managers based on how their press
How
conferences
they're
are.
talking. Yeah, I think that comes from, I must admit, sometimes when I listen to Gio, I think, and you're right, he can't help how he talks. I just wonder, though, if that's how he's speaking in the dressing room, is he able to... I'd imagine Gerrard would have got a dressing room properly up for a game, you know what I mean? I think Ryan Jack would have been ready to kick his granny, you know what I mean? I think that's where that criticism comes from. People look up and think, well, if that's an example of how he's doing his team talks, is he getting the team up for it? But I agree with you. Look, I've been critical of Gio, and I do have my concerns about him.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, but
critical, you know what I mean?
I just think that this talk, is he getting sacked this week? Is it like this? This assumption that he is about to be sacked, I think we're way off it, because based on results, there's no sort of case to argue that he gets the sack, because he's getting the results.
You're right, and one thing about, forget about people's opinions on whether they should or they shouldn't be sacked. The facts of the matter are he's not going to get sacked. As I say, unless there is a complete and utter annihilation of the club in the next few weeks or whatever. So
yeah.
I think the thing that the fans need to do is, right now we've got, I think, 5 really, really important games coming up. Well, league games anyway before the World Cup. We need to get behind the club. We need to get behind the team. We need to get behind the manager. We seen a couple of years ago, and this, my acquaintance who's a Celtic fan mentioned this to me. He said some of the hate that Lennon was getting from Celtic fans the 55 season, he's like that. A lot of Rangers fans are sort of turning on Gio the same way when at the start results were good. And I think just the pressure that was under Lennon, I think from the fans and whatnot, I think that had a big impact on how Celtic collapsed that season. So that's one thing that's really fearful with me this season, is that even when, performances aren't great, but results are okay, I think the more pressure we put on the manager when the results are good, the more bad feeling that I've got that we could end up going the way that they went a couple of years ago. That's just a wee theory. I mean, it might be true, it might not be, but that's kind of what I'm fearful of right now.
We'll see where it goes, but I think you're right. I don't think, unless there's a complete capitulation in the league in terms of results, I don't think he's going anywhere soon. Final sort of topic tonight, Craig. The World Cup's coming up. Don't even get me started in that, right? Proper traditionalists here hating everything about this World Cup. So it's coming up 4 or 5 weeks or whatever, sort of midway through November. I was kind of having a look at the fixture list tonight, just moving forward. So we're obviously Livingston tomorrow, Aberdeen at home next week, then St Johnstone away, Hearts at home, St Mirren away. So if we get the 3 points tomorrow, we're 4 fixtures away from that prolonged break. Given where we are in terms of confidence, around the mood, around Gio, around the injuries, all that kind of thing, it just feels like just win those 4 or 5 games, get to the break, gives us a wee breather, a chance to take stock, a chance to get some people fit again, and then we go again sort of mid-December, January.
Absolutely, that's the way that I see it. And I think they're favourable fixtures. Obviously, you've got Aberdeen and Hearts in there, but they're both at home, so we need to win every home game anyway. But I think if you look at the other side of the city as well, they've got 3 away games. They've got Hearts away tomorrow, Livy away next week. And I think their other away fixtures, Motherwell. I think their 2 home fixtures will be pretty straightforward. But, I'm thinking here, on the positive note, there could be a chance to maybe bridge that gap a wee bit. If we can get 5 wins put together, we know how hard Celtic find it at Tynecastle. We know how hard they find it at Livingston. So there's no reason why they can't drop points tomorrow or next week. I think, as you say, it's just a case of get through this tough period. It is a tough period, but I genuinely think, if we can get to, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm going to take it, right? But if we're in the same position, 2 points behind, at least going into the winter break, it's not a disaster. Do you know what I mean? I think it would be okay. One thing that I've been kind of saying recently is that, look, now this is probably the first time going into a season where for about 12 years that both Rangers and Celtic fans are going in expecting to win the league. I think last year Celtic never really expected anything. The years before we won the league, we were kind of like, we were hoping we were obviously going to do 55, but I don't think we had that expectation as such. Whereas now both clubs, you need to win the league. And I would say every season we've got the last Old Firm game of the split at home. If we go in 2 points behind the last Old Firm game at home, win your last 5 games, the last Old Firm at Ibrox, you've won the league. To be honest, I would take that at the start of every season. If you had to win your last 5 league games and the last Old Firm was at Ibrox and you're 2 points behind, I would take that every season. So I think right now the position, whilst it's not ideal, you never ever want to be behind Celtic, obviously, but you know, they're a good team, you know, and right now they're having a few injury problems as well. Let's see how they do away to Hearts. Let's see how they do away to Livy, with the injury problems that they've got. And you know, as I say, if we can get, you know, the 5 wins, hopefully they can drop a few more points, and you know, it might make the bid a wee bit better. I mean, look, we're all sitting here moaning about Rangers. We could be talking about like this time tomorrow. I mean, we could be 5 points behind as well, but like.
Aye.
That's how close it is.
I was actually speaking about this to David Rend, who used to be on the pod. Was on the WhatsApp through the week, and I was like, imagine they go to Hearts, get beat, and we beat Livingston, and well, obviously they'll stay top on goal difference, but we've caught up with them in terms of points. I was like, I think I'm hosting the show on Sunday. I says, I think I'll just spend that full 60 minutes just laughing. Because, you know, we're in such a situation where everybody's talking about it's time to sack Gio. Rangers are never going to win the league. I says, I could be sitting here on Sunday night talking about, well, that's Rangers